Man, you know, I respect Luffy more and more with each passing arc, but I tell you, man, just to take a beating and just keep getting up and keep getting up. Oh, I love his heart, boy.
Man, this is One Piece, chapter 316. Soul Brother, or Brother Soul. Afro Soul Power. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Afro Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the soul-sucking Afro adventure-filled tale of One Piece. Our last chapter, of course, saw Luffy going below decks over there and a number of different things happening to him, but him ultimately coming out, it seemed like ahead, against the guy, as he liked to call him, the Pinhead. But the chapter did end up, of course, with Luffy getting hit with the slow beam and the Nine Tails mega move or whatever that he does, and Luffy kind of, slowly going back towards this just sort of black cavernous-like room with two gleaming eyes. That's where the chapter left off, and that's where this one picks up right there. Obviously, as he goes and comes out of the 30 seconds of slowness, all the hits that he took wound up adding up and just kind of and propel him backwards. He falls down, I don't know, what appears to be 20, 30 feet into this dark room, and as he goes and looks up and he sees, these eyes, and actually he's like, where did Foxy go? Where'd he go? All of a sudden we go and we see, and Foxy's up in this, controlling this thing, and basically it's a big wall of boxing gloves, right? And it's called Gorilla Puncher number 13. And he's like, and he boasts about how he can even knock out Sea Kings with this and everything else, So Luffy's like, okay, whatever. And the lights turn on and everything, and this thing's gonna keep moving towards him and pin him in between the wall and, of course, these fists that are punching, right, which also happen to be heated as well. They'll singe you to a crisp. So then he goes and he fires the slow beam, but he fires it knowing that Luffy will, wind up dodging or move out of the way. But there's a mirror behind him, and he explains that the light photons from the slow beam actually bounce off of there and whatnot. So as he winds up doing that, and Luffy goes, Luffy dodges, and a couple of times and everything else, and then Luffy goes and just turns around and just straight punches the mirror and just busts the wall up. He winds up getting up and around, on top of where Foxy the Silver Fox is up on top of this behemoth, this thing or whatever, and winds up just cold cocking him with a gum pistol. Foxy winds up eventually getting the upper hand back though, and and winds up hitting him with a number of these punches, pummels him, from this gorilla puncher, and gets Luffy all burnt to a crisp and everything else. So then they go and they zoom out and they take the action outside, and the MC's just like, and I don't even know what's going on in there. They're below decks and who knows what could be happening, right? And it's so funny because this whole afro that Usopp put on him, and the afro power, and he's got the power of a soul brother. They keep bringing this stuff up, and they show all the Straw Hats standing side by side, right? And they'll be like, yeah, he's got afro power. You can do it with the afro. And then Nami's like, and Nami's the one that keeps going back to I don't see how having an afro makes him stronger. Like, what's the deal with the afro? And it's just like a recurring theme throughout this, this last couple of chapters. And then Robin a couple times says, she's like, I think he's cute. I think it's cute. He. And then you got other guys from the Foxy crew, and they're like, oh yeah, he's really tough. He's, he's got stretchy powers. And other guys like, oh yeah, and he's got the afro. Yeah, the power of a soul man, a soul brother. And Nami's like, again, what is it with the afro that makes you stronger? And I think it's just a goofy inside joke type of thing, because obviously we know that wearing an afro does not make you punch or hit harder. But a lot of things that happen in life are perception, and Luffy's very dim-witted in the sense that you could go and give him a candy ring, a ring pop, and tell him that it's the the be-all end-all magic beam of the world that makes his fist powerful, and he would believe it. And a lot of times when you believe something, you don't realize it, but it's subliminally it gets to you, and you just kind of fight. Subconsciously you fight harder. So I think that was really what. And plus, I think it just meant to be just this goofy comedic thing. But I love the recurring theme of the afro and the afro power. And does the afro make the champion, or the champion make the afro? So very, very cool stuff though. But anyway. Then we wind up going and we see, and they're like, oh, and two figures emerge and this and that, but only one standing. And you see that Foxy's still standing up, and Luffy has been burned and beaten. He's all just bloodied and beaten looking, his afro all messed up, and he's just laying on the deck and whatnot. So everybody thinks that this round's going to go to, obviously Foxy. Foxy just needs to toss him out, And then they go, and it's really cool because I think this is one of those great things that you see in the really cool 80s and 90s action movies where the main guy, the hero, gets knocked down, gets shot shot, gets whatever, and then he gets back up, and then he gets shot again. I mean, it even happened like in Lord of the Rings to Boromir in the first one, Fellowship of the Ring. He gets nailed. He's at the end of his life. He's taking out all the orcs to try to redeem himself, and then he winds up getting hit by that big heavy arrow from the huge Urukai orc or whatever, and then he goes and he fights off a few more guys, and he gets hit with another one, and he still stands back up and spinning guys, beating him with a shield. That type of situation, because Luffy goes and gets up, right? And he gets up and you can tell he's bruised, battered, beaten, what have you. And then this cheap son of a bitch, Foxy, goes and winds up going and swipes something at him, and you see, and he's like, what the? He's like, yeah, I used my my slow beam sword on your arms and legs. The rest of your body, you're free to move, but, you obviously can't use your arms or legs to hit me. And then he goes and he pummels him again with this nine tails, whatever. And I also want to know, is that just like a little inside joke meant? I'm sure a lot of these mangakas know each other and everything else, and obviously Naruto and One Piece, are very similar in the length that they've been around, 97 and 98, I believe. And, so, I mean, obviously these guys, and the two of the top selling mangas in the world, I'm sure these guys maybe it was a little inside joke poking fun at each other, because this move in this comedy arc, this whole Nine Tails move to me is just very funny, because it's used repeatedly, and just kind of enough to where to me it seems like it's a goofy little jab, it's like a comical jab at Naruto. But anyway, I'm not sure, and I'm not here to, fight or argue or discuss about it, but I just thought it was funny. So Luffy goes and gets pummeled, right? And I mean, goes back down. You think he's done. And boom, he gets back up. And I'm like, oh, man, And then he goes and he winds up, he hits him with that slow beam again, and he fucking pummels him again, right? And they're like, and even Nami at this point, she's calling bullshit. She's like, that's cheap. That's got to be, that you shouldn't be able to use it. What the, fuck? And then Foxy goes and he's like, hey, it takes a lot of energy to punch too, And I mean, he just smashed Luffy up against one of his, it looked like the mast. It looks like the mast was broke, the mast post or whatever, from hitting Luffy. And of course, Luffy coming out of the slow beam and then taking all the impact like he does. And then at the end of the chapter and at the end of the volume, man, just great. It's going to leave you hanging. Thank God I got the next volume over here because I got to tear right into that son of a bitch, right? Luffy goes and gets up again, right? And everybody's just like, oh my God. And then he's just like, I won't lose a single member of my crew, even if it kills me. And he's just got this great, I mean, he's bleeding from everywhere. He's got all the hash marks, just look, he's been burned, beaten, bruised, bloodied. And he's just, oh man, is it great, and then it's just like Luffy, Straw Hat Luffy is back on his feet. And I just thought that was great. And at this point, Foxy has got to be getting nervous because regardless of how this arc is treated comedic-wise or whatever, man, this Foxy he's thrown everything at him, right? And the reason the guy's 920-0 is because he's a cheap fuck, He's obviously not very strong, but with the addition of his slow beam and all of his little House of Horrors, maze, traps, and everything like that on his boat over here, which I'm sure he always conveniently makes sure that his boat gets chosen as the, or his ship as the actual, arena to fight in. Obviously it's weighted toward you could be 10 people, it doesn't matter how strong you are. So I definitely think that at this point he's probably got to be scared, But I guess my chapter question here to end up the volume and stuff is, and I know many people are, back and forth in this arc. Some people are like, let's just get through it. Some are like, it sucks. Some are like, hey, it's not bad. Others are like, take it for what it's worth. It's funny. I don't really care. I'm in none of those categories. I'm not going to, get pigeonholed into one or the other and get into some kind of, internet debate or argument. But what I would like to know is, what are your thoughts on Luffy? And even though this is meant to be a comedic arc, what are your thoughts on him? I mean, he's half dead at this point, right? I mean, he's been burned, he's been beaten, he's bleeding all over the place. He's got to be bruised and broken, if he can even break bones because of his rubbery body. I don't know. But I mean, he just takes a lick and keeps on ticking, just keeps getting back up for more. And like I said, that really reminded me of, just kind of some of those like action heroes, you know what I mean? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Sylvester Stallone, a Jean-Claude Van Damme, one of those guys that would just like get pummeled and then just get back up and be like, come at me, bro. So what are your thoughts on Luffy, though, and ultimately just his unwavering determination? I've asked similar questions in other chapters, but there were many chapters and other arcs previous to this. So just right here, right now, thoughts on Luffy and his determination and his will to just push forward and get up, even though he just keeps getting knocked back down. Leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation.
Yeah, you knock him down. Why don't you try knocking me down? Hey, and while you're at it, go and follow me over on Facebook, Twitter, and even my other channel.